Welcome to Korean language learning course. In our last lesson, we learned about the basic form of verb and we also learned about the verb ida, which means is. Now we will begin with other form of verbs. Last time we learned the verb ida, which is equality complement. That is, it describes A is B. Now let's take some examples and revise what we did previously. 이것은 책입니다. This is book. 저분은 기타입니다. That person is Gita. Now let's move on. The form piyumnida is a formal form of a sentence. Now we shall study the casual form of sentence making, which is ayo or oyo. So let's begin with the casual form of sentence making. This is actually a relation with the origin of how Hangul script is made. As I told you in introductory lesson that the Korean script was derived from the natural elements like sky, man, earth, etc. According to the Asian concept of yin-yang, the whole cosmos is maintained by the balance between the elements of opposite energy, the balance of negative and positive, earth and sky, fire and water, dark and light, men and women, etc. These pairs must maintain the balance between them. So Korean vowels are also categorized into light and heavy vowels according to their nature and phonetic characteristics. The light vowels consist of a, ya, o, yo. The heavy vowels consist of o, yo, u, u, e. Now the concept of casual verb endings are purely based upon this principle. Verb root with light vowels will connect to a plus yo. Verb root with heavy vowels will connect to o plus yo. If the verb root ends with a, then a plus a will remain a. Example, khada. That is ga plus a plus yo, which becomes khayo. In case there is another vowel, then it either remains separate or can be combined if those two vowels make any diphthong. For example, poda. Po plus a plus yo. Poayo or payo. Same goes with the verb roots with heavy vowels. Example, chuda. Chu plus o plus yo. Chu o yo. Choyo. The examples mentioned above were regarding the normal case of verbs. However, in Korean language, there are many irregular verbs that change in a particular manner other than the normal one. However, they are not difficult to learn as they change in a specific pattern. Those patterns are not much. So once you came to know a particular pattern, all those verbs belonging to that pattern will change in the same way. There are some verbs which change normally in formal piyumnida form but show different tendency to change in casual ayo or oyo form. Some verbs change normally in casual form but show different changing pattern in a formal form. The examples of those kind of patterns are given with explanations. Normal way to treat verbs in Korean language is to add piyumnida in the verb root if it is without pachim and sumnida if it is with pachim. This is the formal manner to treat verbs. Khada, khamnida, ida, imnida, mokta, 먹습니다. 봤다. 봤습니다. Consonants 디귿, 시옷, 지읒, 치읒, 티읒, and 히읗 on the place of second consonant in the verb root are pronounced as 디귿. And in that case, whenever those verbs are joined with sumnida, any of these second consonant will be pronounced as s. However, when second consonants are followed by vowels, they are pronounced as their own sounds as they adopt the sound of that vowel. For example, phat plus a, phada. If we are treating the verb in informal or colloquial manner, then we must see whether the vowel in the verb root is light, which is a, ya, o, yo, or heavy, that is o, yo, u, e, and accordingly put a, yo, or o, yo respectively with them. For example, oda, o plus ayo, oayo, chuda, Chu plus oyo, joyo. 먹다, 먹 plus 어요, 먹어요. 놓다, 놓 plus 아요, 놓아요. However, there are some irregular verbs in Korean language which have to be treated exceptionally in either formal or colloquial manner. They may look complicated, but if observed carefully, each kind of irregular verb has its own pattern and a specific manner in which it has to be treated. Like when there is a real as pachim in the verb root, the verb is treated as a regular verb in colloquial form. For example, salda, sarayo, nolda, norayo. However, when treated formally, the real in the verb root drops and replaced by nida directly. For example, salda, samnida, nolda, numnida. Verbs like samnida should be observed in the context with the sentence and situation to know whether they are made irregularly out of salda or normally out of sada. When the verb root ends with piyab as pachim, the verb is treated as regular verb in formal form. For example, 어렵다, 어렵습니다, 아름답다, 아름답습니다. However, when such kind of verb has to be treated colloquially, the piyab is replaced by u, which is a heavy vowel, and thus such verb always ends with u plus oyo, that is voyo. For example, 어렵다, 어려워요, 아름답다, 아름다워요. Note that there are some exceptions like 덥다, which becomes 더워요, and not 더워요. Some verbs with piyab in verb root as pachim are regular verbs and should be treated in normal manner like 잡다, 잡아요, 좁다, 좁아요. When the verb root ends with r without any pachim, and usually such verbs have two syllables both without pachim. Real is added to the first syllable as pachim and r is changed according to the heavy and light vowel rule. This happens in colloquial form only. For example, 모르다, 몰라요, 지르다, 질러요. In case of formal forms, such verbs are treated normally. For example, 모르다, 모릅니다, 지르다, 지릅니다. There are some exceptions like 놀라요 is not made out of norda but a regular verb 놀라다, which means to be surprised, and it is treated normally in colloquial manner. In case there is any consonant other than real in the verb root as second syllable with the vowel u, then the heavy and light vowel rule is applied according to the vowel in the first syllable and u is replaced by a or o accordingly. This is made when verb is treated colloquially. For example, 아프다, 아파요, 기쁘다, 기뻐요. However, in case of formal verbs, such verbs are treated normally. 아프다, 아픕니다, 기쁘다, 기쁩니다. When the verb root ends with tigat as pachim, the verb is treated normally in its formal form. For example, 듣다, 듣습니다, 걷다, 걷습니다. However, when treated colloquially, the tigat in the verb root drops and replaced by real. For example, 듣다, 들어요, 걷다, 걸어요. Note that there are exceptional verbs with tigat as pachim in verb root which are treated as regular verbs in colloquial form also. For example, 받다, 받아요, 믿다, 믿어요. In case of the verb mutta, which means to bury or to ask, if it is treated as irregular verb, that is 물어요, it means to ask. Whereas when treated as regular verb, that is 묻어요, it means to bury. In formal form, it is 묻습니다 in both cases. In the coming course, as we practice these verbs, they will get further clear in your mind. See you in the next class. Take care.